Ubisoft blames gamers for failure of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Yeah, the usual thing. Eh, it's the usual thing. Did you know, by the way, that Ubisoft has a basically like a job thing where they only want people who are not white, male, and straight? It is wild. And by the way, that's also in some countries that's also illegal, but they still have it. Like, okay, Ubisoft, I see what you're doing. Yeah,
Here
let's
for you
get
guys
into
up
it.
here. So the nightmare year for Ubisoft has continued because they got
And they have like lost about like $200 million last year, and like they're gonna lose like again because like Star Wars Outlaws is not doing good. By the way, the new Dragon Age is also not doing well. Take this into consideration. The new Dragon Age. Take this into consideration. It had about like 900, like was it like about 1,000 pre-orders. New game, by the way. And Tears of the Kingdom, Legend of Zelda, Tears on the of the Kingdom, right now has like 4,400 like things ordered for stores. That means a game that's I think about a year old now is getting ordered more than a new Dragon Age. And like Dragon Age is not like an unpopular like series. Guess what? Guess why that happens? It's because Dragon Age goes the same route.
caught running to journalists to blame gamers for the failures of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Now, recently we
You mean
saw the
just like
release of
Concord?
Star Wars Outlaws, which was another flop for Ubisoft, which coincided with another drop in their stock, resulting in a group of their shareholders demanding some serious changes with the company. Now, not only are these games causing drops in stock and concerns among shareholders because of the quality of the gameplay, it also is exacerbated by the fact that these developers keep doing interviews where they make
Holy downfall. Holy downfall.
contradictory or just outright offensive statements about their potential customers. And that's exactly what happened again here. Honestly, if I was someone who was serious at Ubisoft, if I saw one of the developers approaching an interviewer, I would jump on them like the Secret Service to prevent them from saying further things that might damage the reputation of
Remember when Ubisoft actually made good games? I remember. I think the last good game that I would consider good, like at least play, would want to play, was the new Prince of Persia and Assassin's Creed Mirage. Like nobody's gonna play Skull and Bones. Nobody's gonna play Assassin's Creed Shadows. And nobody's especially not gonna play like the new Star Wars game. Uh,
Ubisoft and its products. Now, looking forward into 2024, Ubisoft really only has one bullet or one major bullet left in their chamber, and that's
Assassin's Creed
Assassin's Creed
Shadows.
Shadows, which releases in November of this year. Which, once again, I'll remind you that they ensured to shareholders this game would succeed because players would receive it in a very positive way. And
So Sony also said the same about Concord. Like for Concord, they literally silenced criticism of the game because they expect Concord to actually be successful. We all know how that went. Shut down after only 2 weeks.
a few days ago, we saw the world trailer for Assassin's Creed Shadows, and look at that. It's an absolute flop that is heavily disliked by
Damn,
gamers,
80k
getting
dislikes.
83,000 dislikes and only 19,000 likes. Yeah, a
I disagree. They had really good games. For example, they had really good games. Like the old Prince of Persia trilogy. I know it's a bit old, but I love these games. I loved it. The Warrior Within trilogy. That was great. Um, What is Rayman Ubisoft? I think Rayman is Ubisoft. I could be wrong, but I think Rayman is Ubisoft. Yeah, Rayman is by Ubisoft. Rayman was also pretty good, and like Rayman had a lot of potential. They could have done a lot with Rayman, but like they left it behind for whatever reason.
Brutal ratio right there. Now, what do you do when you get criticism like that? Well, it looks like Ubisoft has
You
chosen the
blame the
worst possible
players.
route by going to the New York
Because why
Times
else?
to
What? Who
attack
else?
players in defense of Assassin's Creed Shadows. Like I said, they should not be doing any more interviews because they keep making fools out of themselves, and this is just another example of that. Now, before we get into the Assassin's
You know, it's also super counterproductive because if you blame the players, the game will fail even more. Like, what are you doing? I really wonder, like, the people that are like running this company. Like, have you ever like? Do you not know how to run a company? I could run a company even better. I could run a company better than they do.
Creed portion of the article, I think that Park Place brings up a really good point of comparison where basically the tactics of Ubisoft currently are very similar
Sure, you can do that. You can call me that. By the way, the Rings of Power, that show, the second season had like a drop of 50% when it comes to like people that watch it in comparison to season 1. Seems like something is clearly wrong, but like I don't know. I think that's the next show that's gonna get cancelled. It looks horrible. The story is horrible. It's disrespectful to Tolkien. Like goddamn.
to the tactics done by the executives at Lord of the Rings, The Rings of Power back in 2022. So back then, the executives of the show approached Vanity Fair writers and they attacked Tolkien's fans and said that Lord of the Rings of Power, was something that they were bashing and hating on simply
And
because
now they turned orcs into like loving fathers who want just like peace for their people, and like okay, that's not how Tolkien wrote the orcs, but thank you.
of diversity, right? And we know now that this show has been a disaster. It has returned for its second
50%
season,
decline
seeing a 50%
of
decline
viewership.
in viewership from season one. And as always, you see the games journalists coming out to defend and deflect any criticism directed towards the creators of the show. But back in 2022, that duo at Variety wrote that when Amazon released photos of its multicultural cast, even without character names or plot details, the studio endured a reflexive attack from trolls, the anonymous online kind. Kind of like a page out of the book of Amanda Stenberg with the acolyte hate, right?
The problem is that the diversity cost. The problem is that now they have created a culture where not just which is like not like just DEI stuff, but any diversity is a problem. They have created that's those circumstances. That's also a problem. One problem is that most of these characters are written terribly. Also, this looks horrible. If we take a look at like the Lord of the Rings movies, they look better than a show that has been produced with a lot more money. Like, what is this? Armor looks better, effects look better. Like, okay. I don't play that much Minecraft. I mostly play just like Minecraft with like Pokemon mods and stuff, like Cobblemon and stuff.
Blaming le bigots and the trolls online for the viewership and the criticism that they're receiving.
Hello, Skylar Caputo. Is that how you pronounce it? Nice to meet you. Thank you for the sub. I appreciate it.
But anyways, they go on to cite a woman named Maria Rios Maldonado, right, who they described as a token scholar. That was definitely not an intentional pun they made there, but anyways. However, she is anything but. Rather, she was a PhD student at the University of Glasgow who is interested in ethics, feminist theory, and encountering the other in Tolkien's works. She also
You know why this stuff is so bad more and more? Because the people working on this, are not familiar with the material. This is why Henry Cavill stopped being The Witcher, because they were trying to bastardize the original. This is why Henry Cavill now struggles to make his Warhammer show, because the people that at that show don't want to do it in the way that it's lore accurate. Um, like, okay, you're autistic, so like, I don't know why you bring that up. I don't care if you like. You deserve to be here. That's a bit weird, but like, it's okay. Don't worry about it. Like, bro, it seems to be always autocorrect.
also happen to be the Equity and Diversity Offer for the University of Glasgow's Center for Fantasy and the Fantastic. Oh, it all adds up, doesn't it? Now, she would continue and say
Oh
that
no.
basically these fans are racist for simply wanting a lore accurate adaptation of this franchise. Where Maldonado questioned, obviously, there was going to be push and backlash, but the question is from whom? Who are these people that feel so threatened or disgusted by the idea that an elf is black or Latino or Asian? Now, we've seen examples of this very recently, actually, with the
Tales of the Shire has like the same problem. It got so much backlash that they pushed the release back to 2025. Who comes the pushback from? Like, obviously white people, because a lot of white young men that grew up with Lord of the like a lot of people that grew up with Lord of the Rings were young white boys and men. That is just how it is. Sure, there's also always also women that grew up with it, black people that grew up with it, but like, it makes sense that the majority of people in the West are not Asian. I guess that makes sense. So why did she even bring up Asians? And like, that's not the problem. Because, for example, I'm much more excited for like the anime Lord of the Rings movie that's releasing. That looks solid. At first, I was like, the animation, like the Western style, I don't like that necessarily. But like, the more I watched it, the more I was like, okay, um, I like it. It seems cool. I'm gonna enjoy that, probably, very likely. And guess what? The female main character looks awesome. Um, your brother messes it up every 5 days now. That's great. Anime. I like a lot of anime. My favorite is Dragon Quest: The Adventure of Dai. Um, I encountered the original like about 8 years ago, but that back then it was like a really old anime and like a manga. And then the 2020 remake release, and that was super fun. I like that a lot. Some other guilty pleasures are, for example, Dragon Ball GT. I know a lot of people don't like Dragon Ball GT, but I love it. I grew up on it back then when it like aired on when it aired the second time on German TV. I love that. And then Dragon Ball in general, like the big three, though mostly Naruto. I don't really watch Bleach, and I haven't really kept up with One Piece. Aside from that, Dead Man Wonderland is pretty cool. I like that one a lot. I wished we got a second season, but we didn't. Um, Devilman, the original, just as much as Crybaby. I like those two. Um, yeah, those are just pretty much like I don't watch that much.
Lord of the Rings product Tales of the Shire that recently had a showcase here, showing some diversity among the hobbits. You can see that's how it turned out, and it's getting clowned on very hard right now on social media. But now we can go back to Assassin's Creed Shadows and compare what happened in 2022 with Rings of Power.
Yours are Hello Kitty. I mean, technically, yeah, technically. Hamataru, Sailor Moon, Kirby, Magical Doremi, Powerpuff Girls, Z, Sonic X. Sonic X is pretty cool. Dragon Ball, Yu-Gi-Oh! Yu-Gi-Oh! Is also pretty cool. Pokemon. I think the new anime is actually pretty good, I would say. Digimon, Doraemon, My Hero Academia, Death Note, Attack on Titan. I like My Hero Academia, I just don't like the fandom. Like, the shippers are weird. Do you ship characters that just simply don't work together?
Power versus this. So
And like,
again,
why
we're
are
going
so
to see
obsessive
people
over
at
ships?
Ubisoft approach journalists and then try to cite a fraudster expert and then try to deflect all criticism onto bigotry.
It's funny how they cite that, considering that they themselves picked somebody who was a fraud. They took like an apparently an expert on like Yasuke, the quote unquote black samurai who technically was a slave or like a trophy and not really a samurai, but okay. And then he got exposed as a liar and then vanished completely.
So here we go. They end up teaming up with New York Times and one of the writers there. And similar to what happened back then, they quote this: "Some gamers erupted over his appearance," referring to Yasuke, convinced that the franchise, known for its immersive recreations of the past, had gone woke by including a black character in its depiction of 16th century Japan. He then claims that developers received personal attacks and death threats during an online
The
harassment campaign.
problem isn't a black character. You could have included Yasuke, but not as the main character, as he does not make sense as the main character. Why not put it as a side character? Why not put it like I don't know? It could have been like somebody who informs you about stuff, side quests, something like that. Nobody complained when they put Yasuke into like that other samurai game. Nobody complained about that. Cause like it didn't try to like push an agenda.
Campaign. To no surprise, he shares no evidence of such attacks or threats. And honestly, I think that just comes with the territory, unfortunately. I mean, anyone covering Assassin's Creed Shadows and
Like
criticizing
I
it,
do think that these people do have received threats. Um, which I definitely do not condone. You fight these people by not spending their money, like not spending money on those games, and support companies who deserve your money. Like, if you want to support diversity, support somebody who actually does want to, like, who does not push into gender but actually wants to include. Which I know it is really hard to find, but like, there are games where like you can do it.
for some of its decisions, also get that kind of vitriol from people online, but no one really cares what happens to YouTubers and people like that who are criticizing the show because they're doing wrong think. But anyways, they have this whole thing
Yeah,
about going
if you remember about Star Wars Acolyte, critics on YouTube were like attacked. Like they tried to like remove them. False like um getting falsely reported and stuff. That was
woke
horrible.
because they included a black character in this
That is not the
feudal
problem.
Japan setting. And that is a complete misrepresentation of what people are trying to say. There is a reason that they chose Yasuke. It's not because he was the best potential main protagonist. It's because they wanted a diversity representation as the main character, okay? They could have made Yasuke a offshoot character, a side story, something like that, and I think people really would have enjoyed it. But they clearly took him and propped him front and center because they thought it would be
Basically,
very good for their
that's pretty
diversity
much the
and
problem.
inclusivity. I think it's very obvious what they were going for here with this setting and this choice of character, and in the process having to literally rewrite Japanese history to make it happen. Right? That's the most offensive part. They are preaching about bigotry and all these
It
terrible
got
things.
so bad. It got so bad that Japanese historians looked at it. Japanese comedics were making fun of it, and even Japanese politicians looked at it. So it got so bad. Not to mention that they sold merchandise that they copied off of One Piece. They took Zoro's sword from One Piece and sold it as merch for Assassin's Creed Shadows. That's how bad it
But
got.
in the same breath, they are literally rewriting Japanese history in the name of diversity and progression, and it's really ridiculous. And they call you a bigot.
Remember, white people and Japanese people are kind of the enemy. Just saying,
for
for
questioning
these
their
people.
virtue signaling campaigns. But anyways, the big heart of the issue here is the characterization of Yasuke in the game. And the problem with
Just remember, even Japanese aren't diverse enough.
Ubisoft is that they can't settle their minds on how they want to approach this character and other historical characters in this game. Beginning months ago by saying they wanted to faithfully depict real historical figures. And this was something that was backed up by Ubisoft and also games journalists.
Yeah, but then
who
they proceed
said
to do this.
Yasuke is
Proceed to do
a
this.
samurai, not a retainer, as
Of
history
course.
has always suggested up until this point. He is a samurai, and that if you have an issue with that, there's clearly something wrong with you. You're a bigot, what have you. But then we continue on in the
My response to the "you're a bigot" comment is, so what? I don't care.
article where another
That
individual was cited
word
as the
holds no
source
meaning.
and the
It
proof
no longer
that
does.
Yasuke is a samurai. So after attacking the gamers, Small then went into weaving
It's just like Nazi or racist or homophobe. Those words hold no meaning anymore because they're thrown around for every little bit. They hold no meaning.
false narrative that has already been refuted for months by citing historian Yu Hirayama, who is an admitted communist. Small cites Hirayama's claim that it is without question that Yasuke was a samurai. There are very few historical documents on
Ugh, a
it, but
commie?
there's no doubt.
Of course. Because, by the way, the Communist Party in Japan does try to push this agenda as well. We have seen censorship. We have seen more and more changes in video games. Square Enix is one of the big problems because they now have a DEI department. So yeah, we're gonna see a lot of changes for things like Final Fantasy. Though I still think I think Final Fantasy 16 was pretty much alright. I just don't like the censorship around like the female cast for Final Fantasy 7.
Out. He was a samurai who served Nobunaga, as Hirayama claims. Now, before we get into Hirayama, just remember the many different revolving doors of supposed historians who tried to
Thomas
claim
Lockley, I
that
think
Yasuke
that's
was a
the dude.
samurai, beginning with, of course, Thomas Lockley. We've talked about him in depth before, but to very quickly state what he did, he made a 400-page slop book making baseless claims that Yasuke was a samurai, and in his own time, slowly over the course of years, defacing the Wikipedia page of Yasuke, which always referred
Yeah,
to
he
as a
edited
retainer,
the
and slowly
Wikipedia
removed
age. The
sources
Wikipedia
claiming
age
as
got
such
edited.
that he was a retainer, and then slowly started inserting his own book as a source, claiming he was a samurai, eventually leading until a few months ago where he was changed from a retainer to a samurai on the Wikipedia page. all in an effort to promote his own book. And that was exposed, and a lot of people in Japan are very offended by some of the things in this
Yep,
book.
yep,
And
that
eventually,
happened.
people had to
That
move on
happened.
to a
That was
new
funny.
expert, which was this guy, whoever this guy is, right? So he comes out and says Yasuke's a samurai, and people on Twitter went crazy with this clip. There was tweets with tens of thousands of likes, people wagging their fingers in the faces of
I
people
didn't even know that. I did not know that. That's new
who were
information.
critics of the samurai claim, saying, "You're wrong. This historian, this expert has come forward and proved you wrong." Well, it turns out, according to this Japanese YouTuber and many others, that this is just a guy who works at a Japanese restaurant. This is just a guy who's a
Yeah, Japanese person, normal dude comes forward. Evidence. That's funny.
YouTuber. He's not a historian. He's just a Japanese man wearing a kimono.
Just a
And
dude.
people used him as an expert. They assumed he must be an expert on Japanese history, which is very offensive, by the way. It's like seeing a dude named Billy Bob wearing a cowboy hat and in a pickup truck and being like, "Yep, he must be an expert on some of the past of America, the American history." It's just such a stupid thing to claim. So that was debunked. And then we get to Hirayama. He was the next one in the revolving door here. And he would make his statements, like I said. And this would be used by people, again, to weaponize hatred towards anyone questioning the samurai status of Yasuke. And again, as it was pointed out in the article, his claims are that there's not enough history or historical evidence to suggest that he's not a samurai, basically.
Yeah, but there's not enough historical evidence to suggest that he was.
Like, they're saying that the absence of proof is the proof of the claim. Like, it's so ridiculous. But going forward, this would be
It's like saying in a he said she said Google document, like some VTuber drama, that like that's the truth in the document, and like, no, it's not. We don't have any proof.
question as well, beginning with the fact that he is a member of the Japanese Communist Party. And if you're like me, I hear that and already dismiss his claims. Like, but if that's not enough for you, understand why that's relevant. Because Hirayama subscribes to the Marxist historiography
Yeah, no, I'm good. Communism doesn't work.
theory that basically does not require empirical evidence to make claims about history. Meaning, you can just say whatever you want pretty much if it just feels right. So that's how he's determined.
I feel like there are unicorns. There were unicorns in the past. I just feel like it. I just feel in my heart that it is the truth.
Determining that Yasuke is a samurai, basically saying, yeah, there's no real evidence to suggest it, but it just makes sense to me. So believe me. Obviously, this was trashed on once people realized this claim was completely baseless and based on a really crazy Marxist historiography theory that is just trash. But moving forward in the article,
This is such
we have
a
some
mess,
other
such a muddy
historians
mess.
who do say that Yasuke was more likely a
Jesus,
retainer
50 minutes.
and someone that was an entertainer as well for Nobunaga. And they even go on to say that even if it was proven that Yasuke was a samurai, it was much more of a formality that often was given to favorite entertainers and other companions of these people, including sumo wrestlers. Like,
So he still wasn't a samurai in this case, because like a sumo wrestler is not really a samurai. I highly doubt the sumo wrestler would be able to pick up a sword and fight.
obviously, it wasn't expected that they were going to go out and fight in wars, but it was given
Have,
as
have you ever watched like those what sumo wrestlers eat? I thought like they eat like just slop to get overweight. Now these dudes take healthy food and just overeat. It is crazy.
sort of a aesthetic, and they're given a sword and everything else. It was more of a vanity related thing. So those are very damning claims against the claims that Yasuke was a samurai. But continuing on, not only did Small cite the communist Hirayama, but like Vanity Fair with Maldonado, he cited Kazuma Hashimoto, who he
Kazuma
described as a
Hashimoto.
Japanese consultant and translator in the video game
Okay.
industry. Hashimoto told Small, "It was people in the West who were upset with seeing Yasuke as a samurai."
I don't know. I saw all the Japanese tweets and Japanese politicians looking at it. I don't know about that one.
Now,
That's a bit
that
of a
is a
reach, my
pretty
guy.
ridiculous claim because it's not just people in the West who have an
There's
issue
like the same
with
problem with Dragon Quest 3 2D like the 2D HD remake. Um, it's the Japanese mostly clowning on it.
this claim. It's actually a lot more heated among Japanese gamers to the point where it got the attention of the Japanese government. And look at some of the trailers on the Japanese side of YouTube. This was some of the
52K dislikes. I don't know. It doesn't seem like I highly doubt a Westerner would like use VPN or anything to get like access to the Japanese like YouTube or change it or anything. I highly doubt that would be the case.
early teasers. Look at the like dislike ratio. It's even more crooked and negative than the ones in the West. And again, people will defend this by saying, oh, it's just a bunch of trolls from the West creating accounts just to dislike it, which is such a baseless and really just an act of copium on
Like,
their
how would you
behalf.
prove
But
that?
look at the trailer release from a few days ago.
How would you
Okay,
prove that?
again, the like dislike ratio is even more brutal. So it's continued all throughout these months leading up to the release of this, and it's not getting any better. But we continue on in the articles where it says this is patently false and makes absolutely no sense given Small even admits that Ubisoft apologized to Japanese players. Small wrote after the
The apology was basically, we hear you. Anyways,
online blowback, the game's development team attempted to assuage the concerns about the game's authenticity, apologizing in a lengthy statement for promotional materials that it said had bothered some Japanese audiences. In fact, he even noted that a political party in Japan formally asked the government to comment on what it considers historical inaccuracies. And yes, they did make an apology post, where ironically, they flipped their entire view of how history will play into their own games,
did it get
now
community noted?
changing
No.
their perspective from being historically accurate to now saying that we try to respect Japanese culture, but we'll make our own creative decisions.
Who are the 40K likes? Who are you? This is
For
slop.
then a month after that in this post right here, they would flip-flop once again to their main position, and then a few days ago they flip-flopped again, now saying that they're going to make creative choices and that it's not going to be historically accurate. It's mind-blowing. It's a complete mess. And yeah, that's Assassin's Creed Shadows, ladies and gentlemen. This is the Hail Mary.
Changing history. Those who control history are those who have power.
For Ubisoft this year. This is their last chance to make up for the countless flops and the hundreds of millions of dollars they've lost on other projects. And this is their savior. Assassin's Creed Shadows, that's looking like it's going to be one of the biggest bombs of 2024, but that's not too.
I think the name is pretty fitting because like it's gonna be put in some basement in the darkness in some dark corner.
Surprising given the context surrounding this game. But for now, that's going to do it for this video. As always, feel free to share your thoughts about today's topics in the comment section down below.
I think I've shared my thoughts enough. I ranted enough about Ubisoft. Going from a fairly competent company to being absolutely horrendous.